There is a voice within you, older than time, softer than wind, more constant than the turning of the earth. It does not shout. It does not argue. It does not persuade with logic or clamor for attention in the crowded chambers of your mind. It waits patiently, reverently for the moment you are still enough to hear it. That voice is your soul, and it is ready to lead. From the first breath you ever took, long before you had a name, a story, a history, there was something within you that knew the way. Something not made of flesh or bone, not forged in fear or ambition, but birthed from the very source of all life. That something, that essence, has never left you. Though you have wandered, though you have worn masks to feel safe, though you have grasped for answers in places that could never give them, the soul has remained unchanging and untouched. We live in a world of noise, a world that worships speed and praises achievement, a world that tells you who you are is not enough, not yet. Not until you earn more, do more, become more. But let me tell you this, the soul does not speak in the language of not enough. The soul does not wait for your resume or your approval ratings. The soul whispers one thing over and over again, no matter how many times you forget. You are already it, you are already home. When you let the soul lead, you no longer chase life, you align with it. You stop pushing against the river and start floating in its sacred current. You no longer force your way into rooms you think will prove your worth. You walk in knowing that your presence is enough to light the room itself. And yes, the mind will resist. The ego, forged in the fires of conditioning and fear, will cry out. It will beg for certainty, for plans, for control. But the soul lives in a different realm. It is fluent in trust. It does not need maps because it remembers the terrain. It does not need to see the full staircase because it is the step. Rumi said, try to be like the moon in the sky. It doesn't run around looking for attention. It just shines. Your soul is like that moon, radiant, not because it tries, but because it allows. You don't need to become spiritual. You already are. You don't need to find your purpose. You are your purpose. And the more you release the story of who you think you need to be, the more clearly the soul steps forward and says, this is who you have always been. Let your soul lead when fear grips your chest and says you're not ready. Let your soul lead when the world tells you your dreams are too big, your heart too tender. Let your soul lead when grief brings you to your knees and you can't remember the way forward. Because the soul never forgets the path. It walks with you, even when you've lost your faith, even when all you can offer is a single breath in the dark. There is a kind of strength the world cannot measure, a strength that does not harden, but softens, that does not dominate, but surrenders. When you let your soul lead, your power becomes rooted, not loud. Your truth becomes simple, not performative. Your life becomes not a performance, but a prayer. You do not need to be fearless to follow your soul. You only need to be willing. Willing to pause, willing to listen, willing to say yes to what you cannot yet see, but deeply feel. That feeling is the compass, that inner tug, that quiet knowing it is not a fantasy. It is the truest voice you'll ever know. And when you follow that voice, when you stop resisting the pull toward authenticity, life meets you differently. It no longer tests you, it dances with you. Synchronicities appear, doors open, not because you fought your way through, but because your energy became an invitation. This is not magic, it is alignment. This is not luck. It is truth remembered. This is not delusion. It is reality beneath the illusion. You were not created to live from your wounds. You were not born to build your life around fear. You came here to express something sacred, something no one else can replicate. Your soul's frequency, your unique essence, your unrepeatable light. And when you live from that essence, you become the healing, not by fixing others, not by preaching truth, but simply by being a mirror to remind others of who they are. You become the safe place, the quiet presence, the soft smile that says it's okay to be real here. The soul does not demand, it invites. The soul does not control, it collaborates. The soul does not cling, it trusts. And trust, my beloved, is the portal. When you trust your soul more than the opinions of others, you become free. When you trust your soul more than the fear in your head, you become powerful. When you trust your soul more than the story of your past, you become whole. There is nothing more needed. No more proving. No more chasing. No more exhausting yourself trying to be enough for a world that doesn't know how to measure true worth. You are already the mountain, already the flame, already the sacred, walking in human skin. Let your soul lead. Let it rise in you like dawn after a long night. Let it shape your choices, guide your relationships, direct your work, and bathe your days in meaning. Let it speak even when the world tries to silence it. Let it dance even when your heart is broken. Let it be the rhythm that moves your feet, the wind that carries your prayers, the silence that sings louder than any voice. And if ever you forget, and you will forgive yourself, return again, come back home. The soul never leaves. It simply waits in stillness, in love, in light. Because you, my dear, are not a seeker. You are a rememberer. And now, it's time to remember who's been leading you all along. There is a wisdom buried beneath your thoughts that has never been touched by fear, never been shaped by trauma, never been silenced by shame. It is the eternal part of you, the part that witnessed your first breath and will remain long after the story of this lifetime is complete. This wisdom is not earned through striving. It does not arrive with titles or achievements. It comes alive the moment you stop trying to be anything and allow yourself to be everything you already are. It speaks not in words, but in knowing. Not in volume, but in stillness. And every time you turn inward, every time you dare to slow down and feel what is really here, you come closer to it. You don't need to understand it with your mind. You only need to feel its presence with your being. That presence is the compass. That presence is the voice of your soul. And when the soul leads, life no longer feels like a race against time. It becomes a sacred unfolding. You stop chasing moments and begin inhabiting them. You stop performing and begin revealing. There is no mask needed here, no script to memorize, no role to impress the crowd. When your soul is at the helm, you live not to be seen, but to see, not to accumulate, but to appreciate, not to conquer, but to connect. The soul cares little for the illusions of hierarchy. It does not calculate worth by numbers, applause, or perfection. It simply asks, are you present? And when your answer is yes, even if just for a breath, you step into the dimension of the eternal. A dimension where peace is not postponed, where joy is not conditional, where love is not withheld. There will be moments when your mind will resist this softness, when the old programming of survival will rise, urging you to harden, to guard, to hustle. But this is where you pause. This is where you breathe. This is where you say, not this time. Because now you know the difference between protection and presence, between shrinking and surrendering, between hiding and healing. Let your soul lead you through the fire, not to escape the flames, but to remember that you were never truly burnable. Only the illusions burn. Only the masks melt. Only what is not real can be destroyed. What you are, what you have always been, is indestructible, unnameable, holy. There is no map for this journey because the terrain is within you, and within you is every mountain, every river, every sky that ever was. You are not a traveler on earth. You are earth itself, becoming conscious. You are not seeking direction. You are remembering your rhythm. And when you move in that rhythm, you do not fear the unknown. You welcome it. You do not resist the darkness. You bless it. Because the soul does not need certainty. It only needs truth. And truth does not arrive in grand revelations. It arrives in quiet moments of radical honesty. When you admit to yourself, I've been following the noise, and I'm ready to follow the knowing. This knowing is not the voice of your fear. It is not the echo of your past. It is not the projection of your wounds. It is the pulse of something sacred, living in your belly, your bones, your breath. It is the whisper that says, this is who you are even when you forget. This is who you are even when you fall. The soul does not abandon you when you make mistakes. It does not turn away when you grieve. It does not scold you when you're lost. It simply waits, arms open, eyes soft, saying, come home. And coming home does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming real, becoming raw, becoming honest enough to admit that you've been trying to do it all alone, and you're ready to be led by something greater than your ego. When the soul leads, your life becomes a prayer. Not the kind spoken in temples, but the kind woven into every act of presence. Washing the dishes becomes devotion. Listening deeply becomes worship. Walking barefoot in the grass becomes communion. Because you are no longer waiting for heaven. You are allowing it to rise through you. Heaven is not a place. It is a state of being, accessible in every breath, every touch, every gaze that comes from presence. When the soul leads, you stop waiting to be chosen. You choose yourself. You stop waiting to be saved. You remember you were never lost. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You realize this moment is already perfect, simply because it is here and you are in it. Keep listening. Keep softening. Keep returning. Your soul is not in a rush. It has waited lifetimes for you to remember. It rejoices not in your success, but in your surrender. It is not impressed by what you achieve. It is moved by what you allow. And what it longs for most is not your greatness, but your gentleness. Not your performance, but your presence. Not your striving, but your being. The world does not need another polished persona. It needs souls who are willing to live unmasked, to speak from the heart, to walk with bare feet and open palms, trusting the earth to hold them. You are one of those souls, and the time is now. Let your soul lead. There comes a moment in every awakening soul when silence no longer feels like absence but presence, when you no longer see emptiness as something to be filled, but as a sacred space to be honored. The noise that once defined your days, the judgments, the striving, the endless comparisons, begins to dissolve, and in its place, a deeper rhythm emerges. One not dictated by the ticking of clocks or the measures of success, but by the gentle beating of truth in your chest. That truth does not demand to be proven. It simply asks to be lived. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but now. Because now is the only time your soul understands. It does not wait for better circumstances. It is ready in this very breath. When you no longer fear the quiet, you begin to hear life differently. A leaf falling from a tree becomes a revelation. The sound of rain against the window becomes a teacher. Even your own breath becomes a hymn, a reminder that life is not something to survive, but to feel. And in that feeling, you rediscover yourself. Not as a role, not as an identity, but as an awareness watching it all. Watching thoughts rise and pass, watching feelings come and go, watching the world spin, not from the chaos of reaction, but from the calm of remembrance. The soul does not resist life. It dances with it. It meets joy with gratitude and sorrow with grace. It holds space for both without needing to escape either. To let your soul lead is to walk with reverence, not with haste, but with intention, not with the need to arrive, but with the presence to truly witness the journey. It means you no longer chase experiences to validate your worth. You live them as offerings of the moment. And when you live this way, your life begins to expand, not outward into acquisition, but inward into depth. Relationships deepen not because you say more, but because you listen with your whole being. Work becomes sacred not because of its outcome, but because of the love infused into each gesture. Even rest becomes an act of courage, because in a world addicted to motion, to be still is to be revolutionary. Do not be afraid of the pauses. Do not rush to fill the empty spaces, for it is in those spaces that the soul breathes. It is in those moments of still surrender that you are reintroduced to the divine choreography of life. You begin to notice that the universe has always been in conversation with you, not through shouts, but through whispers. Not through signs carved in stone, but through the subtle nudge, the quiet knowing, the sense that something beyond logic is guiding your steps. And when you trust that guidance, you move not with certainty, but with peace. Because peace does not come from knowing all the answers. It comes from knowing that even without answers, you are still held. The soul does not seek control. It seeks communion. It longs not to master the world, but to merge with its flow. This is not passivity. It is power. The kind of power that no one can give you and no one can take away. The kind of power that arises not from dominance, but from authenticity. When you stand in that power, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You embody it. You don't need to chase validation. You become the source of it. And in this embodiment, something extraordinary happens. You begin to resonate. Your energy becomes clear, steady, magnetic. Not because you are trying, but because you are aligned. And alignment is irresistible. It draws the right people, the right opportunities, the right unfolding, not by force, but by frequency. Let this be the day you stop bargaining with life. Let this be the moment you lay down the mask of perfection and pick up the mirror of presence. You do not need to perform to be loved. You do not need to earn your place at the table. You were invited here by something eternal, and that invitation was not based on merit. It was based on truth. The truth that your existence in and of itself is enough. The truth that your soul, without any embellishment, is already holy. And the more you live from that holiness, not as a concept, but as a lived reality, the more you illuminate the path, not only for yourself, but for everyone you encounter. This is not about escaping the world. It is about meeting it more fully, more deeply, more honestly. It is about bringing the totality of who you are, the wounded parts, the sacred parts, the messy and the magnificent, and saying, this too is worthy of love. When your soul leads, you no longer divide yourself into acceptable and unacceptable. You become whole. You become complete not because the world tells you so, but because your own being radiates it. And that completeness is not the end of your journey, it is the beginning of a new one. A journey not of becoming, but of embodying. A journey where the destination is not out there, but in the depth of each moment, live from truth. And so, walk gently, but with conviction. Speak softly, but with clarity. Love boldly, but without condition. Let your life become a reflection of the stillness within you. Let every choice be a testimony that you remember who you are. Not a name, not a role, not a story, but a soul free, infinite, and full of light. There is a kind of remembering that does not come in words, but in waves. Waves that crash quietly against the inner shore of your awareness, unearthing fragments of truth you forgot you ever knew. This is the remembering of your divine origin, the remembering that precedes thought and bypasses language. It is not taught. It is not inherited. It is revealed in the moment you stop pretending to be anything less than infinite. The world will try to reduce you, to compress the immensity of your spirit into something measurable, manageable, marketable, but your soul cannot be domesticated. It cannot be packaged. It cannot be made small. And when you allow it to lead, you shatter the illusion that your value is found in external validation. You return to the sacred, knowing that your very presence is a form of prayer. You see, the soul does not rush. It does not grasp. It does not bargain. It simply is. It unfolds petal by petal, like a lotus rising from the mud, untouched by the water that surrounds it. And when you let it guide you, your life becomes less about direction and more about depth. Less about getting there and more about being here. You begin to feel the pulse of eternity in everyday moments, in the way sunlight touches your face, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the way your hand meets another's not to fix them, but to feel them. And when you live this way, the ordinary becomes luminous. What once felt mundane becomes miraculous, because you are no longer seeing through the eyes of expectation, but through the lens of wonder. Letting your soul lead does not mean your path will be without challenge. It means you will face the challenge without abandoning yourself. It means that when fear comes, you do not run, you sit with it. You breathe into it, you ask it what it came to teach you, and you listen, not with judgment, but with curiosity. And in that space, you find something the world rarely teaches you to value: presence. Not the kind of presence that performs or impresses, but the kind that heals simply by being there. This presence is the birthplace of transformation, because nothing truly changes until it is first accepted. Nothing truly heals until it is first held. And the soul, above all else, knows how to hold. There is nothing in you that is unworthy of love. Nothing. Not the parts you hide, not the shadows you suppress, not the wounds you've tried to bury beneath layers of performance. The soul does not ask you to be different. It asks you to be honest. Honest about what you feel. Honest about what you long for. Honest about the masks you're tired of wearing. And in that honesty, something profound happens. You soften. Not in weakness, but in power. The power of truth. The power of authenticity. The power of no longer needing to pretend. And in that softness, life begins to meet you differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You begin to make decisions not from scarcity, but from wholeness. You speak not to impress, but to express. You give not to be liked, but because love is who you are. And from that place, every interaction becomes sacred. Every step becomes a ceremony. Every breath becomes a bridge between the seen and the unseen. There is no separation. The divine is not elsewhere. It is here in your fingers, in your gaze. in the way you smile when no one is watching. And when you embody that truth, you become a sanctuary in a world of noise. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are willing to be real in a world built on illusion. Let your soul lead through the storms. Let it lead when the night feels endless and the path ahead disappears in darkness. The soul does not need light to see. It is the light. It does not need certainty to move forward. It trusts the next step will appear the moment you take it. And when you walk this way, guided not by fear, but by faith, you begin to experience a freedom the world cannot offer. A freedom not defined by escape, but by embodiment. You no longer need to run from anything because you are no longer afraid to feel everything. You no longer need to protect your heart because your heart has become the source of your power. And in this sacred way of living, something ancient stirs within you, a recognition, a remembrance, a gentle knowing that says, I have been here before. I have walked this path in other forms, in other times. And I chose this life, this body, this moment, because something in me knew that now was the time to awaken. Now was the time to let go of the stories of smallness. Now was the time to rise not in resistance, but in resonance, not in battle, but in being. And so you rise, not to stand above others, but to stand fully within yourself, to claim your space, to honor your rhythm, to walk this earth as though your presence is sacred, because it is. And so you rise not suddenly, not with fanfare, but like dawn breaks over a sleeping world, slow and sure and undeniable. You rise through the cracks of your own resistance, through the ruins of who you thought you had to be, through the layers of silence that once kept you safe but now ask to be shed. You do not need to fight for your place. You are the place. You are the still point around which the dance of life moves. You are not becoming anything new. You are dissolving what is false, so that the truth may be felt more clearly. And that truth is not complex. It is simple, radiant, immediate. It says only this: you belong here, now, as you are. To let your soul lead is to relinquish your grip on the outcome and fall in love with the presence of the process. It is to see your own healing not as a project to complete, but as a song to sing with tenderness and awe. You stop measuring your worth by how fast you grow and begin honoring the sacredness of how deeply you feel. You stop asking, am I doing it right? And start asking, am I doing it from love? Because love is not a destination, it is not a reward, it is the atmosphere your soul breathes, the light it radiates, the ground it walks upon. And when you begin to see yourself not as separate from that love, but as a living extension of it, you no longer ask the world to reflect your value. You embody it. And still, the world may misunderstand. It may question your softness. It may label your stillness as laziness, your sensitivity as weakness, your refusal to perform as rebellion. But when your soul leads, you no longer adjust your essence to fit into spaces that diminish you. You no longer contort your truth to earn approval. You realize that no amount of shrinking will ever make you feel safe. True safety is not found in conformity, it is found in authenticity. It is found in waking each day and choosing to be aligned rather than accepted. And in that choice, you rediscover your sovereignty not as a shield, but as a light. A quiet radiance that says, I trust who I am, even when others do not understand. You begin to see the divine not just in temples or texts, but in the eyes of strangers, in the rustle of leaves, in the aching beauty of being fully awake in a world that constantly invites you to numb. You stop outsourcing your authority and reclaim your inner altar. You stop waiting for permission and realize you are the answer to the prayer you've been whispering in the dark. Not because you are without flaw, but because you are with truth. And truth is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. It may burn away what no longer serves you. It may dismantle the structures that were built to contain you. But what remains, what always remains, is the core of you that cannot be touched by fear, cannot be broken by circumstance, cannot be forgotten by the source that dreamed you into existence. There is a place within you that remembers the stars. A place that has never doubted your worth, never questioned your path, never lost faith in the unfolding. When you sink into that place, when you let it rise and speak and breathe through you, your life becomes a sacred offering. Not of perfection, but of presence. You stop performing for a future that may never arrive and start inhabiting the miracle that is already here. And as you do, you notice something shifting not outside but within, a softening, a slowing, a quiet, unshakable sense that you no longer need to grasp for the divine because you are it. You begin to trust your yes even when it defies logic. You begin to honor your no even when it disappoints others. You begin to see boundaries not as walls but as declarations of self-respect. And every time you choose alignment over approval, truth over comfort, love over fear, your soul breathes easier. It expands, it sings, because it was never here to play small, it was never here to please everyone, it was never here to win a game built on falsehood. It came to awaken, to remember, to love so deeply that even the most guarded parts of you begin to feel safe enough to emerge. This is what it means to be led by the soul, not to escape the world but to transfigure it, to walk through it with eyes wide open and a heart unguarded, to hold the ache and the awe in the same breath, to bless the questions without needing all the answers, to look at your reflection not with critique but with reverence and whisper, I remember now, I remember what I am. And so here you are still open bare, not broken but broken open, not lost but finally, blessedly found. Found not in the eyes of others, not in the grasp of success, not in the fleeting validation of being needed, but found in the quiet sanctuary of your own being. The soul did not need to be discovered. It only asked to be remembered. It waded through the noise, through the striving, through the relentless pretending. And now, here in this moment of stillness, of unguarded breath, it steps forward not with fireworks, but with a whisper that shakes the very ground of who you thought you were. You are home. Not the home with walls and locks and lights left on for someone else's return. Not the home built on borrowed expectations and stitched together identities, but the eternal home, the one that cannot be left, cannot be burned down, cannot be taken from you, because it is you. You are the home, the sanctuary, the altar, the eternal flame. You are not the seeker, you are the source. Not the one wandering through life to find God, but the place where God wakes up and remembers its own reflection in human form. And in this holy return, you no longer walk with the urgency of someone trying to arrive. You walk with the grace of someone who knows they are already there. You speak less to be understood and more to simply share the overflow of your presence. You no longer ask life to make sense, you let it be sacred. Every step, every sigh, every sorrow becomes infused with meaning, not because you impose it, but because your awareness allows it. You stop demanding clarity from the universe and start offering your trust to it. You surrender not in defeat, but in devotion. When you let your soul lead, you become soft without collapsing. You become open without being broken. You become powerful without needing control. The world may not always recognize this kind of strength, but the soul does not ask to be seen. It asks to be lived. And when it is lived, everything around you begins to shift. Not because you have imposed change, but because you have become a frequency of truth so undeniable, it reorganizes the field around you. Others feel it. They may not know what it is, but they feel safer in your presence. They feel less need to pretend. They remember something in themselves just by being near you. That is your legacy, not in what you accomplish, but in how you exist. Not in what you build, but in what you become. Not in the noise you make, but in the peace you radiate. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to embody a world that needs no fixing. A world where love is not a transaction, but a truth. A world where worth is not earned, but intrinsic. A world where the soul leads and the mind serves not the other way around. And as you embody that, you become the permission others have been waiting for. You become the reminder that freedom is not a reward. It is a birthright. That joy is not the end of struggle. It is the presence of grace. That wholeness is not a destination. It is the foundation from which everything sacred begins. So take one more breath, not to reach for something, but to return, to feel the life already pulsing through your veins, to honor the divine intelligence that knows how to beat your heart, to heal your wounds, to guide your path even when you can't see it. Let the breath be your anchor. Let the stillness be your teacher. Let the soul be your compass. And if ever you forget, and you will return again, not with shame, but with softness, not with guilt, but with gentleness. The soul never punishes forgetting. It simply waits for remembering. And now you remember. You are not just a part of the universe, you are the entire symphony played in a single note. You are not a mistake wrapped in skin, you are a miracle draped in human form. You are not here to be small, to blend, to apologize. You are here to radiate, to awaken, to love so fully that even your silence heals. Let your life be that love. Let your soul lead. And let the world be changed one breath, one truth, one awakening heart at a time.